Okay, so I want to start with just this very piece at the top here. If you really think about it today, every single one of us in this room today, as a 21st century citizen, we are actually very digital today. Now, but when it comes to healthcare, the challenge we have really is healthcare is light years behind what we expect as patients when we enjoy, or when we receive healthcare services. Now, one of the things that is important really is, as a 21st century digital citizen, I've got multiple digital footprints. I've got data in multiple places. The question is, how can I help my doctor to drive actionable insight around the data sets that we have? And I think that's the big challenge we have for us today as an industry. So, my objective today is to kind of help you figure out how to quickly embark on a digital transformation journey and derive value from it. We've heard so much about the industry shift. We've heard so much about business priorities. I think it comes down to three things. How do I build the new? We've heard so much about that today. How do I leverage the ecosystem of partnerships that we've all heard today? And the third, really, how do I tackle the legacy? Because the reality in healthcare really is nothing is shut down. So if I can just go in your mind's eye with me into the future, I think there are three or four major steps that leading organizations today are embarking on. We've moved from the days of web economy where our systems of records are kind of all over the whole place. A lot of organizations right now in the marketplace are in that domain where we're API enabling a lot of the legacy assets that we have. But the reality is, we heard on this stand earlier this morning around how Apollo and Microsoft have developed a cardiology AI that can bring insight into the workflow of the cardiologist. And I think when we begin to mash that up with what I call conversational economy, with chatbots, with all these other capabilities, I think we're going to be able to solve the challenges that doctors and physicians throw at us. As a chief technologist that work around the world, I hear these messages every time. Clinicians, we're asking them to practice IT rather than practice clinical services. And I think when you look at the stage of the market today, it's very much in the first gray bar at the bottom. Now, a lot of organization leaders today are very much in between that conversational economy and cognitive economy. I mean, I would like to say in this audience today, part of the work that we're doing with our partners here in India is to actually truly position healthcare in India around that cognitive economy. And for us, that's important because of the amount and the vast amount of insight that exists right here. So, with all of that, I think when I talk to clinicians, they're actually saying, how do we reimagine that user experience? And I think if you are in the web world, you're in the API world, you're in the microservices world, you may achieve some of that. But if you begin to pivot to that cognitive economy, you can now begin to drive these types of value. Wouldn't it be great, before I walked into the consulting room, my doc understands not just my clinical status, but all of the environmental data that could influence his clinical outcome. So, I want you to just go with me in your mind's eye for a second. Imagine healthcare as a data science. So what's data science all about? It's about using data to actually transform outcomes. I think today, our industry needs to build on three core foundations. The first is turning information into true utility. In other words, irrespective of how the data is captured, irrespective of how it is consumed, it's completely turned into a liquid, so to speak. And the second really for me is, we heard earlier today about lack of resources in healthcare. Whether I live in the UK, it's such a challenge. When I'm in the US, it's a challenge for a lot of our docs out there. So the question is, how can we use this information to turn our healthcare providers into hyper-productive workers? And I think that's the other big thing that we've got to do. And the third one really is, I think we're blessed in our generation where there's so much in the marketplace that can truly transform healthcare. So, from my experience of delivering technology and transformation around the world, there are three big things that you always need to bring together all the time. If you think of the pace of technology today, technology used to change in waves of 3-4 years. Now technology innovation happens in short bursts of 2, 3, 4 months. So the question is, if you had requirements that needs to be fulfilled in 18 months' time, before you start, it's already failed. So the reality is you need an approach that your aspiration keeps track, or your requirements, so to speak, or your delivery keeps track with the aspirations of the company or the organization. The other really is the pervasive nature of technology today actually changes the way we handle change within the organization. It's no longer the past where you deliver a solution and you're trying to figure out what it means to implement the change. Change has to be part of that ecosystem. And I think the third one really is what I think is really going to help us a lot, and that is begin to recognize that our technology approach has to take a platform-based approach. How many of us use WhatsApp here? I think every one of us will raise up our hands. And what is really the underlying technology there is it has a rich information property. And that's the value of what we need to harvest in healthcare. So, I think we need to build on the principle, what I call separation of concern. Folks who are architecture or technology-based here would know what I mean. And that is, let the system that do whatever activity do it well and keep them there. Our EMRs today, many of them struggle to take in AI because they were never designed to do that. But today we have AI and AI platforms that are designed to generate insight. Let's move them into the system of insight. We have multiple channels of communication. Let's have them in the system of engagement. Now that way, that separation allows you to take advantage of the modularity, to take advantage of interoperability, and to take advantage of frameworks that gives you the best of all worlds. I'll skip this for 1 second. So, if you did that, what happens? You open up your entire backbone to be truly information-enabled. This is just giving you an example of where you turn information that were not really designed to be consumed in multiple ways into a real API-based model. Now, think about it. My data used to be in multiple silos. Now I've completely democratized the use of information. Now it's a lot easier for me to push that information into an AI platform that generates insight. But the challenge we also have in healthcare is a lot of the AIs that we have, we don't have an optimum use of those AI and insight. So I think you need a platform approach that allows you to take those insights and ingest them back into the workflow of the physician in the right context. So, how do we make all this happen? I think one of the things we need to do as an industry is to pivot away from output-based specification to a design thinking mindset. And what does that mean? It allows us to think of move away from what is possible now to the art of the possible. We've heard so much about innovation today. Innovation really is what is the art of the possible? And that's what design thinking allows us to do. And I think the other point that we really need to think about really is all of the structures I talked about allows us to build an adaptive way of working. So let's just think of this as a way. From a design thinking perspective, one of the challenges that it helps us to address is understand problems, understand the reality of those problems, understand really an approach to create a vision of the art of the possible, as well as understand what it means to individuals. Now that is what helps you to link your vision with the appropriate unit of measures, but most importantly, to understand what it means to whoever is going to be using the solution. So, just think about what I've just said. You take a platform-based approach, you build an information fabric that allows you to turn every piece of data into utility. That enables you, my friends here, to have series of reusable blueprints. And that is what enables you to accelerate your delivery. Now, you can have the platform, you can understand what the client needs, or what the doctors need, what the back office folks need. The question is, how do you ensure adoption and a realistic use of the solution? And I'll show you 3 examples here that I have lived with, and many of them have been painful, but also an example of what success means. You know, often you put a solution in, you achieve the purpose, you achieve the deadline, but adoption goes down because it's not just about training, it's about ensuring that you meet the needs of everyone involved. So you can have a solution but ends up in harming people. You could also have a solution where the solution is available, but the reality is because it's not being used properly, it could result in harm. However, if you have an approach based on design thinking, it allows you really to drive real clinical adoption. Now, what that means really is, with that, you're able now to understand who are the key folks within the organization that are the key stakeholders that will help you drive your change. Identifying them allows you to create what I call a coalition of the willing, or the coalition of folks that will help you to drive what you really want to achieve. So, I'm going to end, so I give you guys more time because I know we're running out of time. For me, what is important here really is for you to drive your digital transformation program. It's going to cause you to change the way you're organized. It's going to force you to kind of turn your organization from tower-based organization to one that is services-based. And you have the opportunity to exploit data in new ways like you've never seen before. Because everything we've had in this conference is about AI, is about technology that does that. The reality is, if you don't connect them together in the appropriate way, you will not deliver the value that you want. And I think the doctor that talked about virtual reality earlier, for me, actually hit a point. And that's my fourth point here. Agile experimentation is one of the things that allows us to retire risk very quickly. And above all, I plead with you, build your solution on a modern platform. Now, because that gives you the opportunity to realize that separation of concern that I talked about. You have your systems of records, systems of engagement, and your systems of insight. And you have the opportunity to then digitize your entire portfolio, and that enables you to achieve your objective of digital transformation. What I've just talked to you about is something that you probably do in days. But at a very high level, if you follow these steps, you will achieve success. And this is what we're doing with Apollo here in India. And I'm so pleased that with this approach, we are actually helping to accelerate the transformation program. Thank you.